When studying networking concepts in a certification like the CCNP program, I find it very helpful to lab technologies in a home lab. There are a number of choices at the CCNP level on how you'd like to practice these protocols and technologies that you're learning and apply them in a home lab. One is physical gear, which is perfectly acceptable, are virtualized options. I have traditionally used GNS3 in the past. I have also used EVE-NG, the free version. What I'm going to use for my CCNP studies this time around is CML, or Cisco Modeling Labs. Cisco Modeling Labs is a comprehensive network simulation tool developed by Cisco. It allows users to create, design, and test network topologies using real Cisco IOS images. The great folks at Learning at Cisco reached out after they saw me announce I'm studying for the CCNP and offered me a trial version of CML. So I can't wait to dive in, take a look, share with you folks the advantages and disadvantages I see. The installation doesn't look terrible, which is great. I'm going to install it in ESXi on my home lab server. It looks like you need 2 files. I downloaded 2 files so far. One is an OVA, which is going to be the CML server VM. And then there's something called a refplat ISO. The refplat ISO is the VM image for each of the different node types that can be run in CML labs. Apparently you cannot start lab simulations in CML without the VM images from the refplat ISO. So I have those 2 images right now. Step 1 looks like install the OVA in ESXi. So I'm going to do that now. So here's my host. I have an HP ProLiant DL360P Gen 8 that I got from a previous employer. I have 12 CPU cores for 24 total CPU and only 64 gigs of RAM. It's not a beefy machine, but it's great for what I need. I have about 3 terabytes of storage. And what I have to do first is go into my storage, data store. I'm not sure how this is going to look. Data store browser. And then in here, I have all the different images that I imported into ESXi into VMware to spin them up. So I have to create a directory in here for CML. At least that's what I'm going to do. I created the directory for CML. As you can see, EVE-NG, GNS3, my Ubuntu server. I have them all in different directories in my data store. I created a new directory called CML. I click the upload button. It gives me an Explorer pane with my files, and I'm simply in here, which you can't see off screen. I'm selecting CML OVA. Open, and I believe, yep, it's moving it over now from my local PC down to my home lab server data store. So far so good. Uploaded the refplat, which is right here. So the refplat ISO is in the same directory and the data store as the CML OVA. Deploy the controller OVA file to your ESXi host to create a new CML VM. So I believe what they be saying there is to go to my virtual machines, create a new virtual machine. This is an OVA, so I guess this is what I want. Kind of wing this every time I do it. So you have a couple different options here. I'm going to deploy a virtual machine using an OVA. Click next. Let me make this any smaller. No, you probably can't see it. I don't know. Select the OVA. There it is. Enter a name. CML. Click next. Select storage. Standard disk provisioning. So I did see there's like a long list of instructions on the Cisco site for deploying this, and in step 4 there's a bunch of categories for recommended settings. And hard disk, which is where we are now, increase the default disk size, the default hard disk capacity, it's provisioning. Sometimes VMs require thin or thick provisioning. My understanding of the choice here is thick provisioning, you have to carve out a defined hard disk space for this VM and you can never change it. Thin provisioning means that it will just take whatever it needs and it will grow as needed. So I think that's what I'm going to do. We can always change this later. The thin disk uses only as much storage as it's needed, and I guess grows to the total size. So I still think I want thin. It's been a while since I've done this. Alright, so I am going to click down here, finish. And we should see CML pop up here. The directions have a big red block in it that say, do not start the virtual machine. I could start it here, but I won't. It says after you have imported the OVA, you must configure the VM settings before you start it. Upgrade the VM's virtual hardware compatibility. Edit or confirm the settings. So now I think it's been a while, people. All right. So now we are in the CML VM. I am not going to start it. Oh, sugar. It's starting automatically. Why the hell did it power on? All right, I'm going to turn it off because it said not to start it. I either click start or auto started. I don't think I have auto start. Something I learned in production, there's an auto start feature for VMs, which I'd have to find and do a separate video on. But if your server reboots, if you lose power and it comes back up, if you don't have auto start enabled, your VMs just stay down, and that does not make for a good production experience. So we go over here to edit. And then here is where we can configure the things it's asking us for. CPU, resource, memory, how much hard disk space, and all that. So I am going to pause this, look at the recommendations, set it, and then come back. All right, there were a ton of settings and some documentation that I can provide a link to deploying the OVA on ESXi server. Biggest thing I did was, and I don't know, I'm going to see how it runs after a bit, but I assigned 8 CPUs, 2 cores per socket because I have 2 processors here. Enable CPU hot add in case I have to add more later. Just a bunch of settings in here. Expose hardware for virtualization, enable virtualization, hyperthreading is on. I assigned 32 gigs of RAM. I only have 64, so I assigned half. It said to lock that, so it reserves that just for this VM. I think it does. It avoids a swap file getting too big, I believe. Bunch of nerdery that doesn't really matter probably. What else? I assigned 100 gigs storage, which is what the documentation recommended. It has networking. There's the data store, connect the power on. I think that's it. The only thing I'm ignoring is there's a section to enable external connectivity so that this could talk to network environments outside of CML. I'm just going to keep it isolated. So I'm going to click save, and then I am going to power on the VM because that's what it say to do. Let's see what happens. So I fired up the VM. The refplat ISO is in the same data repository as the CML OVA, so they can talk to each other and find each other. It looks like there's going to be an initial configuration wizard that pops up here, which is cool. I am going to click OK for continue. I am going to accept the EULA, which of course I read off camera. Before the system can be used, this is deployment style networking and 1 or 2 accounts need to be configured. Continue, navigation, cursor keys, tab. 2 interfaces are required for clustering but are not available. The setup will proceed with standalone, which is what we want. Enter the system's unique host name, CML controller. All right, so I'm going to set up looks like an admin account here, so I will be back. So good news, after some time, all the files got moved around and I got the Cisco Modeling Labs UI. Use the default or the username and password that I set up. Now it's asking me for licensing. I have to find the registration token and enter that. So far, so good. Okay, I got my registration token from wherever that was, the Cisco Learning Network store. Copy the registration token. I guess I put it here. Product registration token. Okay. Paste. Register this product instance. Register. Registering this product. Registration completed successfully. Woo! Oh my god, look at this. Smart licensing. License authorization authorized. Blah, 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 blah. Sweet. I went into licensing because I got a message or an error saying I couldn't fire anything up until I figured out the licensing, so I figured that out. I was in dashboard, I think I hit add, and now it's going to give me a tour. Welcome to CML. So I can add nodes up here, that's sweet. Once expanded, nodes can be dragged to the canvas. Node panes. The pane button expands the bottom panel, allowing you to see the added console. All right, so when I hit add nodes, we have a bunch of stuff here, which is great. We have firewalls, CSRs, iOS XR, server desktops, Ubuntu, WAN emulator, that's nice, and XOS. Not exactly sure. I'm familiar with the CSR 1000Vs. That's what I run in EVE-NG, so I might just fire those up to get started as quickly as possible. For switches, I'm going to have to probably reach out to somebody and see what makes the most sense. I thought an XOS was the Data Center 9K. I don't know if maybe IOL L2 here is layer 2 switching, and maybe unmanaged switch is layer 3. Maybe I'll just fire some of these up, build a topology, log in, and see what kind of functionality I have. All right, so clicked add nodes. I picked some iOS V routers because they're lower resource than the CSR 1000Vs. I picked some L2 switches down here. Put a couple of clients down here, 2 desktops, a server. I can't figure out how to wire these up. There's a draw line tool here, but I don't think that's what I want. So I am going to click lab, start lab. Everything's starting up. My resources jumped on the bottom a little bit, and what I'm hoping is once they're running, we'll be able to cable some stuff. So we shall see. So I can see my resources are on the server starting to fire up here. The CPU is climbing, which I would expect when the images boot up. It should probably settle down. It'll grab all the memory it needs, and that usually stabilizes too. Plenty of disk space. I'm just looking at the bottom there. So far, so good. So this is interesting. Zoom in a little bit. I didn't see this before. Now that they're running, with the little green Delio guy there, if you right click, you now have an add link option, and right click, add link. So that's cool. It wasn't there before. So I guess you have to start up the nodes to add links. All right, I think that's enough for now. I got CML installed, got it up and running, cabling things up. I will begin to log in and lab things up as they come up in studies. Thanks for watching. Hope this was helpful. See you next time.